Hello everybody, my name is Sniping is Fun, and I welcome you all back to the next character number 111, triple ones, on the road to 150 of this long-range series of Super Smash Bros. Newcomer character ideas for Smash Bros. Ultimate, coming out in December of this year, and I've already done 110 characters. I'm on the road to 150. I'll get that all hopefully done in November, and talk about various Nintendo, third-party, whatever, some other characters. And there you go. But yes, and this video, and you've seen the name of the video, you've seen the thumbnail, you've probably seen the video before this that told you about this video. But the next character I want to talk about, as mentioned in the last video, I want to talk about Nintendo from the Mother franchise. I'm talking about another third-party classic group of characters that can work as Elf Olimar alternate costume type of thing, like I did with Billy and Jimmy from from Double Dragon, that are classic video game characters since the 80s that have super large history on Nintendo, and that's the Contra franchise, and the original two main characters from that franchise, Bill Rizer and Lance Bean. And let's get this started before this intro gets on too long. Let's just go over why I feel these characters deserve to get in, moveset ideas, and percentage chance. The same three categories as always, tried and true, talking about topics. Let's get this started with the reasons why it makes sense. Like, why does Contra deserve to be the next third-party character represented? Why represent Contra? Why is it deserving to be in with Metal Gear Solid, with Castlevania, with Pac-Man and Mega Man and Bayonetta, and all these other third-party characters? We have Sonic the Hedgehog. Why represent, Contra? Well, Contra is one of the most iconic video game franchises really of all time. It's been around since the 80s. It's been around since the NES, and numerous games since then. It's had numerous games since then, like 14 or so games since the original on the NES, and it has branched out into other systems than just Nintendo branded ones, especially naming PlayStation and the Sega systems. But that hasn't stopped franchise before. Cloud's in freaking Smash Bros. Right now, and the franchise Final Fantasy jumped over to Sony for a long time and is now just coming back to Nintendo. So it doesn't really dictate anything, but it's a long-running iconic franchise, whether you want to look at it from a Nintendo's perspective or not. It's iconic running in the entire gaming industry since the 80s, since the original NES game. But it's also iconic on just Nintendo alone, on the NES, the Super Nintendo, the Game Boy, the DS, various games over the years, and it's a popular old school franchise that a lot of gamers look back on, and younger gamers are experiencing it now through the NES and Super Nintendo Classic Editions, the Wii Virtual Console, the eShop, and whatnot, or by some of their older relatives pulling out an NES and Super Nintendo saying, "Here, son, here, daughter, play my games that I grew up with." Or obviously people remember it from back then. It is a gaming icon, and the Smash Brothers seems to also not only celebrate new but old. It celebrates relevant characters, not relevant characters, old school, new school, Nintendo third party. And really, one of the most iconic group of characters is Bill Rizer and Lance Bean. It's Contra. You could ask angry video gamer, you could ask a bunch of different old school gamers some of the favorite games they played back in the day, and Contra will probably come up 9 times out of 10. And the entire series has practically been on Nintendo. There's a few, like I said, on the Sega systems, the Mega Drive, the PS3s, the PlayStations, and whatnot, and in the arcade and everything, but most of them have been on the Game Boy Advance, the Game Boy Original, the Super Nintendo, the NES, the DS, various Nintendo games. There's been 8 main games, 6 side games. It's pretty much a long-running series. And these are practically the mascots of their series. There's been numerous characters added to the Contra series over the time, but Bill and Lance have been there since day one, and they're pretty much the Billy and Jimmy of the Contra franchise. So they're gaming icons the same as Billy and Jimmy Lee, Mario, Link, the Doom guy, Ryu, any Mortal Kombat character, especially Scorpion and Sub-Zero, Pac-Man, the Galaga ship, the Pong paddles. They are gaming icons, and I feel if we're looking for a gaming icon, old school classic third-party character that still has some sort of relevancy now, Contra is pretty much that series. And they're icons to the gaming industry, really. So there you go. Not just a series of stuff, but they're iconic characters. People know them because they were built off of Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger. They are iconic. During the 80s, the masculine, like 80s, like, Rambo and Predator and everything. That they have iconic looks because they're based off iconic people, but they're from an iconic franchise and are iconic characters just because of that iconic franchise. I think they deserve it. Moveset ideas. They're trained Contras. Contras is the type of like military type group. It's basically a group of them that they're trained in combat, and thus because they're trained in combat in like a militaristic type group, they should know how to do hand-to-hand combat. This is where I had to take some creative liberties because I've played some Contra games, but I've never played all of them. I played one of them once on PlayStation. I played the original on the NES and Super C, I think some Super C, and then Contra on the Super Nintendo because the NES, the Super Nintendo Classic Edition. I never got to the DS game and various like the arcade stuff and the Sega Mega Drive ones and whatnot. But as far as I know, the games are only gun based. Like you only have like weapons that are ranged guns. So I never recall them being physical combat. This is where I take some creative liberties because in Smash Brothers you kind of need that because the opponents can be right up to you and you have to punch your way out. You can't just range attack and stuff like that. So since they're trained Contras, they should know how to hand-to-hand combat and defend themselves. So they're gonna have standard punches and kicks. Think like Snake. Think like a Snake type maneuver, like CQC, but not as trained. Like they can train them. They're trained to fight. They can do punches and kicks, but not maybe as well trained as Snake, given that he's a clone, the big boss, and he's all trained in super high militaristic type stuff. So standard army, military guerrilla type warfare, hand-to-hand combat, defending yourself, punches and kicks, standard stuff. And a combat knife. So most of their smash attacks are punches, kicks, and taking out a combat knife, jabbing it, slashing it, uppercutting with it, and stuff like that. It's a little bit of a creative freedom. You don't really see it in the games, but I kind of have to represent it like that because, you can't use a gun the entire time. The special attacks are where all the awesome weapons and guns come into effect. The iconic guns from this series. The machine gun, the spread gun, the laser, flamethrower, homing gun, crush gun. I don't think all of them would fit. I basically mentioned the same thing like BJ Blazkowicz from Wolfenstein, the Doom guy, Jill, and Leon from Resident Evil. Any of these characters I mentioned with various guns and weapons. You kind of have to limit it because you can't fit every single one of them into a Smash moveset, but you can pick about a good 5, and I basically think, okay, the machine gun's a standard. You have to have the machine gun. It's a standard rapid-fire gun. You have to have the spread gun because it's super iconic to the series, and everyone loves the spread gun, so you have to have the spread gun. You have to have the laser because at least it makes it different than a standard gun, and you just shoot a giant laser like a super sci-fi energy gun. I would not pick the homing gun because that's kind of cheap. It works in Contra, but it doesn't work in Smash Bros. So homing gun's gone. The flamethrower, so you'd be able to burn opponents out. Like, burn, 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 ah! Shoot flames out. So that's right there about 4. And then automatically just have the crush gun. So the machine gun's the standard gun you use. Spread gun's probably like the up B or right B or so. Flamethrower could be a down B. The crush gun could be somewhere maybe in the air or something, or grounded. And laser could be whatever. So there you go, I'd say that. And I don't mention this with every single character in my series, but the shield will be the barrier, and you get the barrier in the game. It's like a special item you get that defends yourself. So when you use the shield, it's a barrier kind of thing. So that's it for this. So smash attacks are hand-to-hand combat and the combat knife. Trained hand-to-hand combat, like Contra, trained hand-to-hand combat and a combat knife. And all the gunfare weapons and grenades and stuff. I think there's some grenades in there too, so I didn't say that, but maybe throw in a grenade. Who knows? Actually, no. Scrap the grenade. Just all guns. It's guns, guns, guns! The weapons, the guns will basically be the machine gun, the spread gun, laser, flamethrower, and crush gun. They all be rapid fire. The final smash now, I'm going to have to make it the super shell, the bomb, because that's an iconic weapon in the series too. Basically what you do, when you get this bomb, this shell, it's one of the special items. You do it and it blows up and kills all the opponents on the screen. So they're going to grab it, like when you get the smash ball, they just pull out the super shell and they drop it to the ground and the thing just blows up in the entire stage. And then any opponent that's on the stage, obviously, because that's pretty much maybe about 90% of the stage, let's say 90%, so maybe you have a small chance of escaping it, but it's so super small, chances are whenever someone plays as Bill Rizer or Lance Bean, they're going to hit you with their final smash. It does extreme damage, it blows all opponents off the screen, super shell, KO, done. So, percentage chance I can see him actually getting in. I'm going to say about 20%. Not great, given that Contra hasn't had a new game since the DS, but still a small percent there because of how iconic they are. I gave Billy and Jimmy about 45% chance, but that's not only because they're iconic, long-running characters since about the same time as Contra. They've been on the arcades, they've been on the Nintendo, they've been on the Sega, they showed up on like PlayStation and whatnot. But they're also relevant now because of Double Dragon Neon. So like they have the iconic, legendary status, but they also have relevancy nowadays too. Contra really doesn't have that, and I think that kind of hurts them. That's why I gave Billy and Jimmy Lee a 45% chance, but I'm giving them a 20% chance because Contra's not really relevant now, but it can come back at any time. Maybe the Switch will eventually get one. Maybe the next Nintendo system will get one. You never know about that. But right now, I'm giving them a 20% chance. Lance Bean and Bill Rizer, because the series is iconic back then and has a long history with Nintendo, but isn't really the most iconic, relevant now because there hasn't been a new game since the DS era, Contra 4. So Bill Rizer, Lance Bean, 2 costumes, 1 character. Like I mentioned with Billy and Jimmy Lee, 4 costumes, Bill, 4 costumes, Lance, and 20% chance. And that's it for Contra's Bill Rizer and Lance Bean. Put in the comments, do you guys think you guys like this idea? Do you guys want to see them in the game? Would you love to see Contra represent? Did you play any of the Contra games back then, or did you play any Contra games recently? For those of you too young to have maybe grown up on like the NES and Sega and Super Nintendo and whatnot. Put in the comment section below, discuss it there, we can have fun. My moveset makes sense. What weapons would you pick? Like, I picked some of the basic weapons that are throughout like the entire series, but there's some weapons that are also specific to certain games, so maybe you can pull some of mine out and go for that too. Is the Super Shell good final smash? Train hand-to-hand combat nice, sound cool for a smash attack. Is 20% too high, too low? Discuss it there. Have fun. We can have fun with that, and there you go. And that's it for character number 111 on this road to 150. And then when I come back for character number 112, I want to talk about the second character for Streets of Rage. I already talked about Axel Stone. I want to talk about Blaze Fielding, and I want to talk about why she makes sense for Smash Bros. As well. So till then, see you all later. Peace. Please subscribe if you want to. Have a lovely day. Stay tuned for the next video or more videos to come, Smash or otherwise.